Let's get this party started. Two, one, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, one. Go, go, go. We are live Friday night where your weekend begins. Good evening, Purple. How are we doing today? I hope you had a wonderful week. Glad you could be here with us tonight. Rachel W. Hello, Will. Hello, Rachel. Welcome. Welcome to tonight's stream. I hope you had a wonderful week as well. How was my day? Very busy. Very busy today. I had to move a lot of heavy equipment around today. I had the day off of work, but I had a whole list of things that were on my honey to-do list that I had to accomplish. Put up a wind chime that my wife had bought at a craft fair. That was fun. It wasn't like little tiny wind chime. This is one of those really big, gigantic ones. And it's made out of a like a buoy. I think it's heavy as heck too. But I had to support it, to make sure that it was anchored correctly. Then I had to move a camper, and I had to move a trailer, and I had to move a vehicle. Then I had to move another vehicle, and it wasn't as simple as just like hook them up and move them. I had to move a lot of things out of the way to move all that stuff. Doing great, Will. I had a really good week. Thank you for asking. Well, that's good, Purple. Good evening, Cement Shoes. Lori Sutton, good evening. Welcome. I hope you both had a wonderful week. Glad you could join us tonight. I'll wait for a couple more people to get in here, and then I'm gonna jump on the subject that I wanted to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Casey White and Vicky White. A new report has come out about the involvement. In case you don't remember who Casey White and Vicky White is, Vicky White was the corrections officer who helped her murderer boyfriend. They have the same last name as White, but they weren't related at that time. But helped him escape, and they went on the run, and then they were eventually caught in Indiana. Well, good. I haven't seen Janice. Is Janice here? I did not see Janice. If you're here, Janice, good evening and welcome. But it's very interesting. Get my notes in my clipboard. So I'm taking the price tag off the back of it. Learn something new. Okay, so Casey White and Vicky White. Since the actual apprehension of Vicky White took her life, as we all know, in Indiana. But authorities in Alabama have been going over and trying to make the connections between Vicky White and Casey White and trying to learn when did the relationship with them actually start? Did it start a month before, a year before? Did it start when he was there, for trial for the attempted murder of his girlfriend and kidnapping? Did it start then? When did the relationship start? Going back through all of the phone calls that Casey White had actually made from jail outward, they found 949 calls from Casey White outward bound to Vicky White, and a large proportionate amount of those calls were they had phone sex. 949 calls total, but a large majority of them is them having phone sex. Now, they're also trying to determine when did they actually hatch the escape plan. When did Vicky, was it a spur of the moment thing? Did they plan this thing out? And it appears at this point right now that the escape plan they started to put it in action of her buying certain things, getting rid of materials, and getting other things, getting a car, buying it with cash, all of these things that wouldn't be traceable by the authorities. They originally started doing it 3 months prior to him ever being relocated back to, because they knew he was going to be standing trial on additional murder charges. So authorities in Alabama have learned that accused killer Casey White and Vicky White spoke on the phone 949 times, and there's more to that in just a minute. Before the now deceased corrections officer helped him escape in April 29th of 2022. So this is just past April. But on the phone call part of it, when a phone call, an inmate in jail, prison, wherever they may be, incarcerated, whenever they make a call out, those calls are recorded. If they're between client and their attorney, those calls are deleted. They don't save them. They're not allowed to keep those recordings. But what Casey White was doing was he wasn't calling Vicky White at home. He wasn't calling Vicky White's cell phone. He was calling a phone number that is listed as an administrative phone number there at her work. So they haven't said if all 949 calls so far went to that number, but again, a lot they ruled out the home phone that she had and her cell phone. So you kind of get the idea that all the calls were going to that administrative line. And here's the kicker: if those calls were going to the administrative side, they weren't necessarily triggered to be recorded. The system would have seen it as inmate calling corrections officer or corrections jail over and over again. Now, they were recorded, but they weren't necessarily, Vicky and Casey probably thought those calls were not going to be recorded, and that's why they were calling that actual number. That, and she would have privacy for the phone sex, because she would have been in an office after hours by herself. So, but it didn't necessarily trigger any alarms. That's why there's so many calls that were able to be made, and it just looked like this person was maybe an informant. If the system didn't trigger, this person's calling another jail to a private, a corrections line there. So it didn't raise any alarm bells. Where if you called 949 times to KFC, it would probably ring some bells. Why is this inmate calling KFC? Does he like KFC? What's going on here? All right. The only thing that they know for a fact right now is that they had phone sex between August 2021 and February 22nd, 2022. Casey White, 38. Vicky was 33 at the time? I can't remember. But additionally, the number of calls that they had made, she was either on the clock or she had just clocked off. So they're looking into that. That's a whole nother part. Now they're looking at did other people who worked with her at the jail there, Did they know she was going into this office and doing whatever? Right? Obviously, there's probably no windows looking into the office, but did they know she was on the clock when she was making those calls? So they're looking into that. So what was trying to figure out how the plot and everything in the jailbreak started. Now they're looking into it, veered off to, okay, did other corrections officers there know, that she was on the clock and or just clocking off, when she was getting these phone calls from Vicky and between Casey to her. So Casey White is currently serving a 75-year prison sentence for murder, and he has been brought back there and for a murder to hire plot. Additionally, so but the murder, 75 years for murder and kidnapping. Vicky was a cougar. Good morning, good evening, Reichert, wherever you may be in the world right now. Angela, Hollis, good evening. Welcome to tonight's live stream. I hope that you both had a wonderful week. Is this a premiere? No, Reichert, this is just a live stream. I just wanted to go over the information about Vicky and Casey White. Casey White is still alive. Vicky White took her life there at the scene after the car crash, and they're not releasing the forensic reports. I filed a Freedom of Information Act request because it's still considered an open investigation. They're not responding to those right now because it's part of the ongoing maybe charges down the road against him. Obviously he's going to be charged with the escape and any charges that have to do along with it, but they're not answering them right now. Tammy, good evening. Hello, Will, and everyone. Good evening. When they showed a picture of Casey White's moves on Twitter, I was officially traumatized. Yeah, it's not exactly physically fit, but he's going to have a lot of years in prison to get physically fit. I'm not entirely sure how old Vicky was. I thought she was older than that though, but I didn't actually write it down here. But the accident and where they were eventually caught was Evansville, Indiana. Right, they went from Alabama to Evansville. And why would he want to get physically fit while he's in prison? I don't know, to protect himself. Prisons are not exactly the best places to be, Purple. They're violent, testosterone-laden places. You put a bunch of men caged up together like that, disputes and fights are going to start. 55? She may have been cement shoes. I don't remember. But either way, but a lot of inmates, depending upon where you go, some prisons have outlawed free weights, and weightlifting equipment because it draws too much violence. Certain groups will try to control it, just like they control the basketball court or different aspects of the yard. Yeah, but overall, prison's not a very, it's not like Club Med. He's not going to some low level, and he's going to Supermax. So wherever they end up sending him eventually is where he's going to go. He should have thought about getting physically fit before he did what he did. Well, it might have helped. Do you think it was deliberate or the gun went off on the correctional? I think it was deliberate, Rachel. I think she knew. I mean, if once they were caught, what is she going to do? Her entire life was over. She had nothing to go back for. Has anyone seen the Dahmer series they are showing on Netflix? I really think it's a great acting. I have not seen the Dahmer series on Netflix. No. So the answer for myself, I don't know if anybody else has. Hi, Kevin Brand from South Carolina. Good evening, Kevin. So, Kevin, right now we were talking about Casey White and Vicky White. It appears that they made 949 phone calls between Casey White and Vicky White, and a large majority preponderance of the actual phone calls, they had phone sex. That's something we all wanted to know, right? I rarely ever watch television. There's been a lot of great TV series, with people, that have come out. I've never seen a single episode of. Love makes you do stupid things. That is true, Angela. You know, that's human nature. But would you give up your entire career, your family, your money, everything, your retirement, all of it for love? Now, some people would say, yeah, they would. They would definitely give everything up for love. Why do you think they didn't plan it out more for after the escape? It seems like they barely made a plan. I think they made a plan, Rachel. I just think that a lot of things. I think that they originally, when once they escaped, right, they escaped. She put them in the back of a squad car. She drove to like a little strip mall where she had stashed the car, and then when they switched from into got him into street clothes, got into that car. I think they thought that they were going to get more of a leeway, a head start, away from authorities, and they purposely threw off clues, about other things to try to send authorities in a different direction. But I think that they planned that. Okay, they thought she had a doctor's appointment. She went to go missing right away. He was being transferred to to a medical facility. So so therefore they figured that they were going to get more of a head start. But the authorities started to piece the entire thing together more quickly than they thought they would have. When it got to in Evansville, Indiana, I do believe that with his gang affiliation, the different Southern Brotherhood, it's like, I guess, a prison gang, and affiliations with other Aryan Nation gangs. I think he was planning on, once they got away, that they were going to help him a lot more. I don't know if they got rebuffed in that area, and maybe that they weren't able to go the direction that they wanted to go because it got too hot. There's a lot about it, the escape part of it after they left. That it's, you got pieces of it here and here, but nothing is a complete pie, puzzle yet. How long do you think he had planned, and how do you think they communicated about it if not on the phone? Oh, Lori, from what they right now, it looks like they did the 949 phone calls in the span of a year in 7 months. That's a lot of phone calls. But I think that they planned on. I mean, he made an escape, an attempted escape before this. So if this wasn't the first and only escape plan, he had tried before, and that got him in trouble, and everything else. But and they started to watch him a little bit more, and that's why the authorities. Another reason why they were more quickly to put the puzzle together, because he had made an escape before, or an attempted, an escape. That dude was easy to spot. He's like 6'9". Yeah, Kevin, he is pretty tall, and he doesn't walk correctly either. He walks with a gait. And Vicky White herself, she had I think something with her hip where she walked with kind of like a shuffle pattern. So they did kind of stick out a little bit that way. But I have it's something interesting to ask everybody. Speaking of inmates that are on the run, in your day-to-day life, say like you're in town, you're grocery shopping, or you're out at a store shopping someplace. How closely do you pay attention to what other people are doing? A lot of us in life will be at the store. We may see the person over there. Yes, that lady had brown hair, and she was wearing a green blouse and or a sundress. You might notice what she's wearing, and she had on uh, just regular tennis shoes with white socks. You might be able to remember that. But if you were to be asked half hour, 45 minutes later, would you be able to describe the lady that you saw briefly in the grocery store? A lot of people, people who go on the run, you would be surprised at how much they just blend right back into society. Even a tall, goofy-looking guy like Casey White and Vicky White, if she was wearing a wig, and she did buy several wigs to try to change, the way that she looked. It's a crying shame. Good evening. Welcome. Hope you had a wonderful week. Can't stay long. My hubby's show is over at 10. Be back when I can. Well, you have a wonderful weekend. If not, crying shame. I stare at everybody. I always watch. I'm a watchdog, Reichart. Yeah, that's one of us out there. I somebody posed that question to me. How often do you actually really pay attention to people in a situation? Because the other day, the individual. So in case you rewind, the other day I went to court to because I was at a Fred Meyer Kroger store this past year when an individual opened fire. He killed one employee and wounded another employee pretty good. I was like a couple aisles over from where the shooting started. But I was at court because he was supposed to be there because they had sent him off for a mental health evaluation. And I was there talking to some people out in like not in the courtroom, but in the hallway area. It's actually a really big corridor. But somebody posed that question: just how often do you actually really look at the individual and pay attention to how they walk, their mannerisms? Did they step? Did they walk with a gait? Did they have any tattoos? You might notice tattoos on someone, but you may not remember exactly what they were. A lot of people have tattoos. Gene, happy Friday, everybody. Jack 72, hi, Roycart, hello, and Cement Shoes, good evening. Tina Reddington, good evening. Untrusting of peeps. But if you think about though, I mean, so I actually was at the store, today, and I was looking at people. I'm like, in my day-to-day life, going through something as mundane as going grocery shopping, I don't look at people. I mean, I notice them there. It's kind of weird, sometimes I get recognized, for this, but other times I don't. And it's kind of like I look up at people. It's not like I'm watching their shoes. I'm looking at people. I just don't pay attention that closely to what one person looks like over another. If they knew they were having phone sex, wouldn't they also know if they were planning? Lori, they didn't know about this until just recently. This is part of the investigation that they're looking into and trying to answer the questions now of when did the escape plan start? When did the actual relationship between Casey and Vicky? That was the overwhelming questions that they're trying to answer. When did the relationship start? Did it start when he was there, in court for on the murder charges originally of the ex-girlfriend and the kidnapping of her two roommates? Did it start then? Was there a relationship before that, or did it start then? Or did the relationship start sometime after he left and was sent off to the prison? They don't know, and that's what the original question was, and they never thought it was going to get to this. Who would think that there were 949 phone calls and most of them being, phone sex. Gene, welcome. You are all my favorite channels. Great true crime, minds, and friends. Well, thank you, Gene. I hope you had a wonderful week, Gene. Thank you for joining us tonight. You never know, though. You could be in the supermarket, you know, or maybe you're at Goodwill, looking for, little Chotsky items or something, that you desperately need. How often would you know, if you looked at everybody and then you got home later on and the evening news came on and it said that this man or this woman was wanted for murder, would you remember, I saw that person? Where'd you see them at? Well, I saw them at Goodwill, or I saw them at IGA, or whatever grocery store you shop at. Still don't understand how she could risk so many people's lives' safety by bringing him out, even if she loved him. He's a convicted murderer. Yeah, that's true. But Casey White has got a violent history long before the actual murder of his ex-girlfriend, and all that, that entire case. He has been in and out of trouble with the law since, I think he was 20 or 21, right in there. He's not new to the justice system at all. He's done a couple stints in prison before all this, before the murder. And then the murder for hire plot was, well, I think that came up while he was in prison. Another inmate, wanted him to, to kill somebody else. Don't quote me on that. I might be getting that confused with another case. You never know. Gets haunted by what happened until he dies in the cell. Yeah. But unfortunately, I think that obviously, I don't think he's been tested. A lot of inmates, that we might want to put a label on them, like sociopath, psychopath, stuff like that. A lot of inmates, they refuse to be, tested. Some do. Some like, hey, very open to it because they want to understand why they think the way that they do. But when it comes to Casey White, I think he's a sociopath. I don't think he really ever cared about Casey, about Vicky White. I don't think he cared about anybody because people have been, expendable his entire life. Half Rudder, good evening. I hope you've been doing well, and I hope you had a wonderful week. I'm glad to see you. How are you doing? Thank you for your channel. I appreciate how informative you are and very, very much enjoy your videos. Well, thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it. Long time no see, Half Rudder. Yes. But I guess it all comes back to it, if Vicky very much may have been in, really truly in love with him. I mean, she had gone through a lot of tragedy, within the last couple of years before, this relationship most likely started. I mean, she lost, the one person in this world, she truly believed, that she was in love with. I don't know if she ever called him a soulmate, but took care of him. And then, and all this came, just started happening in like an domino effect. And here's this guy that pays attention to her and listens to her. We've all fallen in, gotten mixed up in relationships like that at some point in our lives, haven't we? Even if it's a toxic relationship, you don't know how to walk away from it all. You find yourself wondering one day, how the hell did I get here? Why am I even here? Such is life. I'm good. Waiting for the hurricane in Southwest Florida. Well, I hope that you stay safe, half brother. Hope you stay safe. It is the season for those hurricanes and typhoons and stuff. Well, have a great rest of your evening, and we can. Well, you too, Angela. Thank you. I hope you stay safe out there. Weather is going to get well where I am. We're finally out of the hundreds. So I think this week it's in weekend it's going to be in the 80s, 90s. They say 80s, and like right now it's 86 degrees here. It's 6:30 at night, but every time they do, we all just everybody who lives where I do, we all just say, okay, if they say 80s, we say 90s. It's going to be in the 90s, and then we get that humidity that comes in. That just sucks. Gene, you pay attention to your surroundings. You live in an area where I might run into Barry Morphew. I don't know. I hope not. He is accused of killing his wife, Suzanne Morphew. Um, when you're talking about Barry, I would also put his son on that list. I think he killed his son too, not just his wife. Juicy Jules, good evening, welcome. How have you been doing? Long time no see, Juicy Jules. I hope you've been doing well. Need to pick up my son from work. Well, Tammy, you have a great weekend as well. Stay safe out there. Isn't it Barry Morphew in the Carolinas, though? I think he's locked away. He ain't ever getting out. The amount of money he stole from his law partners and his clients, that alone is going to lock him up for an awfully long time. And then the murder, I think he killed his wife and his son. And then the attempted murder of himself, suicide, whatever they call that. I can't remember how they actually legally they classified that. Murder for hire on himself. It's one of them. Smoke them if you got them. The streaming software that I'm using now on Restream, I can't turn the camera off anymore. Used to be able to. Maybe after the new year, when my finances get back to a more leveled out area, I can afford more of these subscription services. But right now I'm doing fine. It works the same. It's just I don't have the features to turn the camera off or I can't hit a button and mute the mic. But it works. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that I just can't turn the camera off anymore. Well, I didn't know Barry had a son. I thought he only had two daughters. You're right. You're right, Gene. Okay, so Barry Morphew is Colorado. Colorado. I'm thinking of another case altogether. Um, Barry, yeah, he has daughters. You're right. You get the clapper, Will? Clap on, clap off the clapper. I watched it. I was surfing, YouTube earlier today. Peyton Sarfraz. Good evening from Colorado. Good evening, Peyton. Welcome. I know we usually drink it on Saturday, but I started now. Cheers. Cheers to you, Half Rudder. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. I don't look at faces when I'm out. I would never recognize anyone. People that run into it, recognize people amaze me. Same here. I don't remember faces, but back to the Barry Morphew. Yeah, he's the one that killed Suzanne, his wife, allegedly, right? We have to say allegedly because, well, they don't know where the hell Suzanne is. But I'm pretty sure he did it. Yes, he does have two daughters. But I was going Reichert. I was going to tell you, I was surfing YouTube earlier today, and I found this YouTube channel about long haul truck drivers and how they prepare. There were three different truckers in different trucks, and they're doing their runs and how they prepare meals and how they secure their vehicles and stuff like that. I found it really interesting, about how they put their seatbelts through the door and then latch it so someone can't break in from the outside, and and how they prepare some meals in their trucks, while they're road. You don't have a Buc-ee's everywhere, so if y'all have never been to a Buc-ee's gas station, you've got to find a Buc-ee's if there's one anywhere near you. Once you find a Buc-ee's, you'll never want to go to another gas station. Buc-ee's has got everything. I thought Travel USA's, truck stops and some of the other ones were really big. Got to watch out for those lot lizards. Tina, Smith chooses back. There are just too darn many crazies out there, Will. There are. But remember, at the same time, there's a lot of good people in this world. For every nut kook out there, there's at least another one good person out there. The good people in this world never seek the limelight. They never, come out and say, "Hey, look at me, I did something good." It's always the nut jobs out there and the sociopaths and psychopaths we hear about every day. But going back to not recognizing people, like in a situation like in a supermarket, of course my mind then went to, what if I was in a supermarket and I got home and then there was an Amber Alert for a missing child, and I was like, God, I see children all the time in the stores or in my day-to-day life here and there. Would I know if one of them was that missing child? Because I don't focus on the faces of each individual. I mean, in a given day, I might see 20 different kids besides my own. Would I know if one of them was the Amber Alert and where I saw them? Scary. Federal cases don't get appeals if not mistaken, but only serve 85% of their sentence. Neither leaked and the leaked audio. Well, there's appeals in the federal system. Josh Duggar, he was convicted in federal court, and his attorneys are dragging their feet on actually filing the brief, which is the first step in actual the appeal process in the federal system. Because first you file the appeal, the brief. The brief says this is why you're appealing the conviction, on what grounds, and and what motions and everything. You put that all in the brief. That gets filed with the federal court. The federal court then takes it and they assign it to a judge, either higher up or a lateral move. So it doesn't. The appeal will never be heard by the judge who was actually sitting on the case. So they'll either move it laterally or move it up to another level in the federal system, and then they put it on the docket. The DA has their chance to reply to that brief, and if it's found that there may be merit for the appeals process to go forward, then they actually set a court date for it. But not a lot of appeals make it all the way through to it. Now, the federal government, when it comes to appeals, has a 97.1% success rate in fighting appeals and winning. The federal court system does not work like the district courts in your county or your state courts, superior court. So there's district court, superior court, state court in the state system, right? And then there's the state Supreme Court, which is above it all. The success rate for the federal system prosecuting cases and winning appeals is well over 90%. Like I just said, the winning of appeals, they win 97.1%. But they don't prosecute a case unless they've dotted every I and crossed every T. They know exactly what the individual did, and they know they can prove it. Cement Shoes, is your icon, is that Keegan? Good evening, Gayla. Welcome to tonight's stream. I hope you had a wonderful week. Is there any shot he'll succeed in this? Duggar? No. Very, very little chance. They're going to, they got leniency on the total amount of years that the maximum he could have gotten for the one charge was 20 years. And he got 12 or 15, whatever it was. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it doesn't matter. So he got leniency on that side. So they're not going to be able to say, that we were appealing because the judge went over and above. And on top of that, they threw out the second charge that he was facing at that time of actually charging him. Because he originally was charged with 2 federal felonies of possession and receiving of child pornography. And they threw out the one, and he was convicted on the second charge. So there's very little room for him to appeal, but they haven't even gotten to that part of filing the initial brief. They keep on going back into federal court and asking for an extension to file, which gives them another 30 days and another 30 days. And they've done this 3 times now. They've gone in and they've moved it again, had a reset again and again and again. Is it true if you get a death sentence, you automatically get an appeal? I can't really answer that question, Lori. I think that if it was in state court, I do believe. I mean, everybody gets avenues to appeal. I mean, you could have been convicted of a minor felony, in your state court, a DUI or something. I think you have rights to appeal to that if you can prove that well, I'm not sure about that. But let's stick to the death penalty part. I would, if I had to just say off the top of my head, Lori, I would say yes. In both the federal and state level, I think they have a lot of avenues to appeal. It's not just one. So I think the average, once somebody is sentenced to, given a death sentence, I think it takes on average 25 or 30 years to appeal a death sentence. Usually in California, you do in superior court. A lot, and that's an interesting thing, Gayla. We have district court, we have superior court, and then you have your state level, and then you have your state Supreme Court. The different levels in California. Same thing here in Washington State. We have those different levels, but in some parts of the country, they have different wording for it. And if they don't have different levels, they have the same levels. They just call superior court something else. I mean, it's kind of weird. It's really fun trying to you know, go through the system trying to get records for things because I'm like, okay, I need to contact the Superior Court in Iowa and or wherever it might be, and you know, and they may not even have. Then I'm like, I don't know how do I get a hold of Superior Court when they don't have one. I'm just using it as an example, but I know Iowa does have the Superior Court. Why do inmates want to go to federal prison instead of state prisons? Are federal prisons better? Heck yeah. They're less violent. There's more when it comes to guards. There are more guards. There's more programs. So better living conditions overall. Better food. Um, more staff. You know, to inmate ratio. You got 12 and a half years. Thank you, Gene. And there's a whole. It's just a better overall environment. Federal prisons are not as violent as state prisons. You know, where states we have different levels of incarceration. You have your basic work farm, then you have your low level, then you have your medium, and then you have your high, and then you have your supermax. In the federal system, there are different levels in the federal system, but they're not. You have your work farm, you have your low level, you have your medium, and then normally in most federal penitentiaries they don't mix high level with the medium. They keep the low and the medium together, or they have like low, medium, and the work farm, and that's what where Josh Duggar is. They have a medium, low, and a work farm. Now, the work farm, he's not qualified to ever be at. He'll never go anywhere near those guys. They're all the way to the front of the prison, if you're looking at a topographical map of it, to the right. Doesn't it stink there will be no cameras or photos? In the Lori Vallow case, yeah, the Judge Boyce ruled today. In the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case in Idaho, where they're facing conspiracy charges and murder charges for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy. Boyce has decided that he is not going to allow still photography or any video of any part of any court hearing or the actual trial going forward. None of it. Just a forensic artist to do sketches, and that's it. Well, I guess they're kind of lucky to get that. But so Josh Duggar is in federal prison, country club. I wouldn't call it a country club, right, Cart? But he is at he's in Seagoville Penitentiary in Texas, and it has medium and low level, but it's a medium security prison. A lot of people want to call it a low level, but in the sex offender housing unit that he's in, about 90% of the inmates who are in there are all medium level security. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not violent. It doesn't mean that they're going to do what's right and be good little prisoners. They've had murders there at Seagoville. They've had a lot of problems with extortion. Sexual assault has been rampant there. I know, right? Sex offender aversion program run by the federal government. What could possibly go wrong there? I say that with sarcasm. Hello, Miss Murder. I'm sorry I missed you. Miss Murder Australia. I love what your post on Facebook, sweetheart. Yeah, I follow along. I go on the Facebook, and I kind of cruise through it, and I try to keep up with what's going on with you, and in school and everything. Why did Josh Duggar's trial not have cameras? Because in the federal court system, they don't have cameras. They do not allow them in federal courts. That's always been a rule. and even if they were to decide to, in some federal cases, you might see the individual going in or coming out of the court, or people were testifying going in or coming out, but never in the actual court itself. Some of the content is tough. Black deaths in custody and suicide this week. I'm sorry, but I'm proud of you. Proud of you, Miss Murder Australia. You're making us all proud. Just keep at it. I don't blame him. He was kind of pushed into it. I mean, like the father and son who murdered Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. To have it covered this way, then give them room to appeal. Yeah. When it comes to the Lori Vallow, Tina, how do I put this in a way that doesn't come off where I sound like a complete asshole? What Lori Vallow, Lori Daybell, a lot of people get mad at me because I keep on calling her Vallow, and they think it's a disgrace to the Vallow family. That's how she's booked. She's booked as Lori Vallow Daybell. But and Daybell is listed as an AKA because when she was originally booked, they couldn't confirm that they were actually married. But when it came to her attorneys complaining about the one camera that had an actual feed. All right, so the way it's set up is there's a camera right here that is focused directly from the back of the courtroom, and you'd be like where the judge would be. Now facing this way, from the judge's perspective, there's one camera that's next to the actual jury, and another camera that would be over to the right. So if you're at the back of the courtroom and you just come in, you have your gallery on both sides. They have the defendant, you have the plaintiff, you have the judge straight ahead. So that's the layout of the courtroom, all right? So they have one camera here in the back that looks through plexiglass window into the courtroom, and then another one over here by the jury box that looks at the defendant and the prosecution's table, all right? So it catches it from that angle. And then one from the opposite side that catches the judge, the jury, and the defendant and prosecutor. So it has a wide angle, all right? What their complaint was the one camera that was next to the jury box was focused only on her and was catching her facial expressions to how the actual proceedings that day were working out. Now, they have complete rights to object to the cameras being there. What I object to, and what a lot of people are objecting to, is that it restricts the access to open courts. To be there in person, to make sure that the proceedings, as us, the public, we have the right to be there to make sure the court proceedings are taking place and to make sure the government is held accountable for what they're supposed to do and they do it right. So people don't get railroaded, through the system. And people still get railroaded, but that's a whole other, subject. But by restricting access, by having the cameras, not allowing the gallery, to be there, holding closed door meetings, restricting access to the documents in the case, holding secret meetings, not court proceedings. That's what they keep on calling them, meetings. It restricts our access and our constitutional rights to an open court. If anybody should be able to appeal, it should be us, the public. And I really hope that Lori Hallis, I'm drawing a blank on it. It's right there. Former prosecutor, now published author. She actually has filed several motions, and Will Boyce actually answer to them, or is he going to ignore them? And if anything's going to throw this thing off the rails, it's like what the court's been doing. Miss Murder, how did everyone feel about the Netflix series? Is the new format like Watts, Body Cam, and Docos? Excuse me. But the Netflix series, the public can go to a trial. Yes, Tina, but we can. In most cases, we can go in. But in the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell case so far, they've had multiple closed court hearings or sessions, talks, right? And then they sealed the actual records of what they were actually discussing. But why have an open court system? Why don't we just keep the entire thing, keep the public out? I mean, someone in the gallery could make a good sneeze or cough. Scenes of the Mother, Miss Murder. I have not watched it. Now, from what I understand about it, it's from the perspective of Colby Ryan and how he learned about what he learned about his mom. But I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really talk about it. It takes away from the transparency and accountability. It definitely does, Miss Murder. Definitely does. Have you seen it, Miss Murder? Because I haven't had a chance to watch it. It's on my list. I just hope it's still on Netflix by the time I get a chance to actually watching it. They'll sort out in trial. Come out in trial. Will they? Father, sins of the mother, the father, the brother, the cousin. Right? That's true, Galen. I mean, besides the Woodcocks, the grandparents, it's really, really hard to find somebody in either the Lori's family or the extended family of the Daybells or the people who are around them in Idaho that is not insane. I mean, but they don't. Do you know you're insane? If somebody tells you that you're insane and you're acting crazy, would you know? No. Diana Bowman, good evening. Yes, very similar to the Watts one. A lot of body cam and cameras interviews, but the interview with family were good. Stinkers? Lori Hallis, October 13th, the hearing to unsealed documents. Thank you. Gene, I have those moments where I know it's in here, but I'm like, is it Ellis or Hellis? For some reason. I just wrote an essay on being sane in insane places. Sane in insane places. Wow. I've been to some of those. Been a sane person, where the environment around me is absolutely insane. Forgive me for a moment here. I have to check this text message. I have somebody I'm waiting on a call back from, and they texted me when they're going to be off work. They're going to be off work in less than an hour. Lori's brother Adam was DJ for Sacramento radio station, who was involved in a contest where a woman died of water intoxication. Yeah. That is definitely true. Just, I mean, if Kobe Ryan, you know, I don't know what they're planning on doing there, but if I have to bet, I mean, it doesn't look good for him. I feel like that some days, Miss Murder, the sane person in an insane situation that follows that a lot everywhere. Yeah, when it comes to Lori and Chad, besides the attempted murder of Brandon um, Brudeau, I think how you pronounce it, but besides the attempted murder plot on him, there's been a lot of really sketchy things that have happened in and around the Val Lori's family. Was working at a courthouse when the civil trial was going on for. I must have missed one of the comments. Trixie, hello, Will and Peeps. Hello, Trixie. I hope you are doing well. Welcome to tonight's stream. Oh, never know though. I just hope that that we eventually get some kind of justice for JJ and Ty Lee, Tammy, Charles, and Joseph. There's got to be some kind of justice in the end of this. I have they have to be held accountable for what they did. But what I was going to say is though is they're not the only ones within their family and those who are around them. There are other family members of Lori's who believe in the doomsday prophecy that her and Chad talked about constantly. They who showed up at a lot of their prayer sessions. Glad I caught you, Will. I'm well. I hope you are too. I am doing well, Trixie. Thank you for asking. It's good to know that you're doing well. Crazy family. It's definitely crazy family. I mean, but where do you draw the line on you believe in a doomsday prophecy? Do you have to act on it and actually put something in motion and therefore it's crazy, or is it just believing that are you dangerous because you believe in it? The woman who died, her husband was awarded millions in wrongful death suit for the water intoxication. That was a crazy story to read about. Feel bad for him though. Making those decisions on his own. He has more judges than he has consults. He's a mole for Lori and Alex. Who is? Must have missed one of the comments. I'm sorry. Just reading some of the comment. Let's see if I. Oh, Adam is mole. Tina. I mean, whatever happened to Lori's friend? We haven't heard from her lately. Once she did the podcast with, is she alive? Hope so. What about the people that she had convinced to leave, to withdraw from Brigham Young University in Idaho, that were going to follow them? I hope they're alive and well. How many people took their prophecy and left, and actually had, when they had the before they were arrested, they had that original date that they all had to cross over to the other side by, so they could leave, lead the the chosen ones. How many of them are, we don't, maybe they're not connected with Lori and Chad directly because they went off and they did their own thing. Are they alive? How many other people are out there that believe in what they were preaching and telling people, and then Chad with all of his series of books, afterwards, keeping it, yes, alive and keeping a very low profile. Well, that's good. I'm Zamora is one that I'm still shocked to this day is not in jail. They already know from the transcripts of the text messages that her and Lori talked about it a lot of what was going on before she married, Alex, before that marriage ever even happened. The Lori and her were talking about how they were going to get life insurance money and where the money was going to come from and everything else. I mean, it screams of premeditated, murder, or at least somebody who was assisting, her. Or is she turning state's evidence? Why is she not in jail? I've always wondered that from the moment that they extradited Lori back from Hawaii. Why was she not one of the first ones arrested in connection with it all? But a lot of speculation. We can all speculate on the whole thing, but I mean, hell, we're going on 3 years. Why is it taking so long to get this case, to court? Well, I'm sure we had a delay with Lori. Lori had to go, act like she was insane for a little bit, and then get magically restored, and then get sent back to jail. If Lori Vallow, Cox, Daybell, whatever you want to call her, if she's insane, she's been insane for an awfully long time, more than this entire conspiracy thing when she met Chad. And she's already, I mean, her entire life, she has used people to get what she wanted and then discarded them like they were a used napkin her entire life. You can go back to the stories and people who've come forward about when she ran for was a beauty queen, that short little time in life. There was a lot of hinky deeds amongst the gang. A Nintendo Wii. Felt bad for that woman's kids. She was trying to win to get them something. Yeah. Weren't the kids found in 2020? I don't have the file in front of me here, Tina, but I do believe so. And it's just ongoing. I mean, the murder case that me and my wife went through, where our friend was murdered, from the day that he was murdered to the arrest to the trial date and everything else. I mean, the whole thing wrapped up in year, maybe a year and like 8 months. Came up with the contest was certainly Southern intellectual. Why did Melanie Pulowski get charged with felony computer tampering, but never get booked into jail or no mugshot taken? Well, they probably did take a photo of her. I don't know if they didn't. I can't say that for sure to answer your question, Gene. But she was released on her own recognizance. She ROR. That's what she signed. Yeah, but if you go back from the time, Tina, from the time that that the kids went missing to now, it's a lot longer than 2 years. She'll be lucky if she gets out. Melanie, if she just gets charged with just computer tampering, that'd be one thing. I think she's gonna probably plead down to is um, most likely in identity theft or something minor version of that. I'm not familiar with the laws in that state and what she can plead down to. More trials that take over 5 years than this trial. I just want it to be over with. I mean, look at the Woodcocks. They just want JJ and body so they can bury him. That's all they want. They want to be able to somehow put this all behind them and close this chapter, this awful chapter of their lives. JJ and what's left of Ty Lee have been, well, they're basically on ice. But they aren't charged with the kids missing. They are charged with the murder after they found the kids. I feel sorry for the Woodcocks, so I really do. I couldn't imagine something like this happening, and then years, 2 years, year later, whatever. I mean, if you're grieving, grieving the loss of a loved one, a day can feel like a year. The time just stands still and it just drags on forever. And nothing is ever going to make you, feel 100%. Make you feel better. Will, are you the Letitia Stout case? She's trying to get to go to a mental hospital for an EEG and an MRI to see if she has a brain tumor. Gene, I was following it back when the trial was taking place, but I haven't been following it since. But I want it all sewed up so they can't get out. Well, with a moratorium on the death penalty in the state of Idaho, they're not going to be putting a needle in her arm anytime soon. All we can hope for in that situation is justice at the hands of another inmate. It happens a lot, ladies and gentlemen. It happens a lot. They can't keep her in protective custody forever. And even in protective custody, it's not like they can have a whole prison and it's just for one person. Somebody could get to her. Something could happen to her. She could slip and fall down a set of staircases 3 times. It happens a lot. Anyways, I don't know if Letitia Stout has a brain tumor, but then again, she did act crazy in her case, so maybe she does. What is it? What I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think that I read somewhere not too long ago that it costs like $20 million to actually um, convict someone, sentence them, and then execute them. It's like $20 million because you have to kind of the entire court system from arrest all the way through, and all of it together, plus the appeals process, the attorneys, and everything else. The time the court drags on, and is locked up with the case. I think it was something like $20 million is what the cost it is to execute one inmate. Some deserve to be executed. That's my belief. May not be yours, but that's my belief. Some people deserve to be executed. BTK, Dennis Rader, execute him. Gary Ridgway, execute him. They have no redeeming qualities left for this world, especially if they're not going to communicate with the those who are working in the psychology to try to understand the serial killers, and these people who commit serial crimes. They're not going to help make the world to understand a lot more of what they did, and they're not going to lie. What are we doing? All we're doing is just shoveling food and wasting our time and material on somebody who has nothing left. But I know that's a slippery slope of people are like, well, they always scrap with it. I'm like, well, what about this person who didn't commit this crime? What their value left? Uh, can't stand that. I've never understood that logic. She's going to get a very popular when she finds out that she was charged with murder of children. Yeah, that's true. I'm sure there's people in the kitchen that make sure she doesn't have have good food. In the kitchen, a lot of the staffing in kitchens are watched pretty good, but you never know. I mean, a lot of accidents happen in the shower. A lot of accidents happen, while they're in their actual cell where they can't run. I'd like 6 to 7 hours away, but my truck died and I can't afford another. Just ask legal counsel for guidance. It'll work out. Are you going to the trial? 6 or 7 hours away. That's a heck of a long ways to drive, Tina. Even if your truck was working, and I'm sorry about your truck dying. Very popular. Letitia Stouts killed 11-year-old Gannon Stouts, and the trial is set for January, I think. Letitia, she's nuts. Is it a tumor? I don't know. Some people just do the craziest things. I was reading about a mother from Texas who drowned her 5-year-old or 5 or 6 year old little girl, her daughter, and she did it, and she admitted to it. And when the cops asked her why she did it, she said, "I don't know." She looked right at him and said, "I don't know why I did it. I just did. If I got there, I'd stay there. Relatives. There you go." But still, 6 to 7 hours, that's a long ways to drive for a court case. But if you're really interested in it, you gotta be really into it though. Remember when Stosh said there were threats written in her peanut butter? Take a Greyhound now. Anybody else ever ridden a Greyhound? I have. It's not fun. It all depends on what route you're taking and where you're taking and how long. Well, Robin Rowe has been in Idaho's death row for 30 years. Last I heard, he was appealing on the possible brain tumor or brain damage. Oh, I'm not surprised by that at all. Like I said, there's a lot of appeals. I know the last time they used the death penalty in Washington State. I can't remember what his name is, but he purposely ate himself to the point where he became morbidly obese. Then he filed an appeal saying that hanging him would have been cruel and unusual punishment. Yes, it rode a Greyhound for 24 hours just to see your parents. I rode one from Minneapolis to where I live, Washington State. I think it took like 5 days or 4 days. It wasn't a fun trip, but because well, first off, I have to say, um, half of the trip was with Greyhound itself, and then they have another company that took over halfway in between. It's like we had to stop at one place and switch buses, and then it wasn't Greyhound for like 500 or 600 miles of that trip, and the bus was just a ratty a disgusting, smelly, thing. Rode a Greyhound from LA to Southern Oregon, but don't want to repeat that. I mean, it can be depending on where you go, and if you get a good quality bus and a good driver, it could be enjoyable. But as Greyhounds say, leave the driving to us. I mean, it's a way to get from point A to point B. If you really want to be there to see the trial, but they don't give peanut butter and jelly out anymore. Did they ever? I didn't know they did. Dallas, Texas, to meet your grandson. That's super cool. I can totally understand that one, Tina. I just took a plane to Dallas, Texas, to meet my great grandson. Flew to Phoenix from here and drive a truck back. Not going to repeat that either. I've taken some wild trips in my life. Greyhound, what I call a crop duster airline. Propeller airplane. Hit turbulence the whole way. The plane's like tossing up and down, left and right, the whole way. That coming out of Salt Lake City, Utah, was when I took that plane. I'll never do that again. Took a plane from Juneau, Alaska, and we were, I don't remember how long we were in flight, 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour. And then the pilot, told us we were going back, and we went back to Juneau. We landed, and apparently along the way, like he lost like one of the main engines. I'm like, yay! At least we made it back alive. Been on road trips with people that turned into complete psychopaths along the way. Some people you just don't, you think you know them, but you don't. I bet my last greenback that Lori won't get the death penalty. Chad might get it if his DNA is on the duct tape. To give you 2 pieces of bread, peanut butter packet, and jelly packet. And that's how they make your peanut butter and jelly in jail. I know in prison they sell it on the commissary, at least where Christopher Watts is. I have the commissary list somewhere. I'm just trying to remember where it is. If it's in one of these files over here, or if it would be in the box. I got rid of I'd say 90+% of all the files on him. But every once in a while, I'll be doing it, tidying up in here, and I'll find another file or a folder with more information in it. But I didn't know that. I don't want that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So since I don't want a peanut butter packet and a jelly packet in jail, I guess I'm not going to go to jail. That's going to be my solution to that. They sell it at commissary in jail, just the peanut butter, but not the jelly. You sent commissary to friends? Wow. What about Lori's DNA on the tape? I think it's total speculation, but I think when it comes to the duct tape, I think the only thing they're going to find out is Alex. I think the DA is what they're going to do is they're going to make the case that Lori and Chad were the ones that talked about demons. The only way to remove what was it? How did they put that? The possession of the evil spirit within someone. So you could have multiple evil spirits inside of you. But the only way to remove it was, they said, you had to cross over to the other side. That this human vessel had to be killed. It had to end. And now imagine that, and keep that in mind. This lady said that about her daughter and her son. That she said that to her friends, so that's an eyewitness to what her and Melanie talked about on the podcast. And here, and how the only way to get rid of the spirit was to, for the vessel to die, so they could be released to the other side. And here she says that to her after she takes JJ off of his medication, and then he's acting all nuts. I mean, hell, my son does that, acts like a nut. Just that's the age of the kids, right? But takes him off his medication, and he acts like a freaking nut, and then tells that to the friend that he's possessed. Okay, you knew exactly what was going to happen at that point, but she didn't call the authorities. She didn't call anybody. Not yet. Welfare check came later from the Woodcocks. I mean, that's just what I know right now on the circumstances that took place then. I mean, everybody knew whenever Lori said that somebody, or Chad said that somebody, he had an entire book of people apparently, that he had already deemed were, evil and they were possessed. Because Lori talked about that with Melanie and told her about the book that Chad had, and it had all these different names of people in it that were, possessed. This bad dumbbell and Lori deserved the death penalty. There's a lot to this, to the Vallow, Daybell, Cox murder. And just think, if we go back in time even farther, back to Arizona, when Alex Cox killed Charles, right then and there, that day, when the EMT told the officer he did not see any signs of a wound from a bat that would have been made to the back of Alex's head, and then Alex refused any medical attention, and the police and them, they just left. If we would have made the arrest and done what was lawfully correct right then and there and arrested Alex, do you think that maybe would have thrown a kink in the time frame of everything else that would take place later on? And that eventually, Charles would still be alive, and Charles would have been able to get JJ away from Lori. And when it came to Tylee, maybe he would have been able to get Tylee away from her. Because he had already started down the path of look, this lady's insane. She thinks that I'm possessed, and all this. And he'd already started laying the groundwork for all of it, even if the system ignored him originally. If Alex didn't kill him that day, would Tammy, would, Tylee, would JJ, would they all be alive today? If we just would have arrested Alex that day. You got to think about it. They say if you just change one thing today, it changes the future and the outcome for everything going forward. Will, do you think Chris Watts will ever tell what really happened, since there was never an investigation done? Well, there was a hell of an investigation done into the entire thing. I would pose that with and answer that with a question, Gene. If Christopher Watts was to come out tomorrow or in 10 years from now and say he wants to tell the truth about everything, Should we believe anything that he has to say at that point? He's been proven throughout his entire life, not just with Shanann, before he ever got together with Shanann, leading up, going through mechanical school, everything else, high school, all of it. He has been an habitual liar his entire life. He's always made himself out to be something bigger and grander than he ever was. He was the best mechanic. He was the best at baseball. He was the best at this, the best in school. But you look at his entire transcripts and everything else. You speak to the people who have known him from when he was younger. He never was the best at anything. He was mediocre at best. But Chris tells it a completely different way. Now, you look at the story of what took place in the actual case itself. He lied about everything around the family. He lied about what was going on, what the conversations were, what the stressors were. He lied about his family's involvement in meddling in his actual marriage. He lied about killing his wife and his daughters. And it's just a complete vicious circle of lies. If he was to tell the story and say, I want to tell the truth, I want to get this off my conscience, whatever it might be, whatever his excuse would be, would anybody really want to listen? Because again, it would be his word that to contradict everything else. It would be his version. We know what the facts are. He killed Shanann. He killed Bella. He killed Celeste, and he killed the unborn son, baby Nico, that never got a chance to, live in this world and be loved by anyone other than Shanann. That's the actual facts in that case, and that's all that's important. He admitted to killing them. He admitted to dumping their bodies, and that's it. Everything else doesn't really matter. Rackhart, smoke them if you got them. The dark spirits of the zombie in limbo. They had a worm or a slug inside them. There were 5 people in that house when Charles was murdered. Lori is the only one still living. I didn't think anybody was there. But it was just Alex Cox and Charles, because Tylee, JJ, and Lori were gone, because she had taken. The story was that she had taken JJ shoe shopping. After they went shoe shopping, they went to Burger King or Wendy's or something like that. And then Alex shot and killed Charles. Alex shot and killed him, shot him, shot him once, and then stood over his body and shot him again. And the bullet went through his body and it was lodged in the concrete wooden floor underneath him. But the police, when they came, they only saw one entry wound, one bullet hole, which matched the story of self-defense. Because they didn't bother to even roll him over to look at him, but they found it later on. But immediately after Alex shoots and kills Charles, he doesn't call 911 to set up the defense of, he hit me in the back with an aluminum baseball bat. Because his name is Mud. That's a reference to a song, that, in case you get it. But he, saying that he in self-defense. But instead, the very first call that Alex Cox makes is to Lori. What do you think he had to call Lori for immediately after shooting and killing her, soon-to-be ex-husband? Oh, the job is done? Most likely. It wasn't about, hey, did you pick me up a burger? Shoot and kill her soon-to-be ex-husband. Yeah, they have an entire story about it. The entire thing is fixed. I don't believe any of the circumstances around that. You know, Charles played softball. If he wanted to really hit and hurt, you know, Alex with an aluminum baseball bat, he could have split his freaking head open really easy with that aluminum baseball bat. And remember the body cam footage of the officer walking around, and they blurred out the scene of Charles dead on the floor. Where the hell was all the furniture in that house? And if they'd been living there even for a short time, why wasn't there a table, kitchenware, anything in that place? The only thing that was there that I can remember ever seeing on the pictures or on the chest cam footage was the actual patio furniture that was outside in the backyard. And they needed that because they threw a pool party later on that night. Crime scene tape put up around the Watts house. There was no DNA swabbing of the home. There was a lot of things that weren't done. Yeah, I'll go with that, Gene. There's definitely a lot of things that could have been done. But if at the same time though, if you're an investigator and you I don't know if Miss Murder is still here. She could probably speak on this a lot better than I could. But if you've been around people, you're investigating a crime. After a while, you just kind of get a sense for their mannerisms, how people act, things that they'll say, and when they talk to reporters and they bring somebody up, in a conversation, and they turn their body a certain way. There's a lot of things that are real, that are really scientifically proven that people do. It doesn't have to be about murder. It could be about if you're confronting someone and how they present their body towards you. Are they facing the exit, or are they, Steve, did you steal the money from the cash register? If Steve turns to you and crosses his arm, there's a lot of things like that, and how Steve says and answers the question can lead you in a direction, like, is this person, guilty? Are they hiding something? Nicole Kissinger's involvement. Hmm. I don't think she had much of a role other than being the mistress of Chris, trying to be supportive to the fact that she knew he was still married. If you buy the story that he told her that he was going through it, he was separated and he was getting a divorce. If you buy that story, her story fits to a point. Do I believe that she was involved in the actual murders or anything at all, and dumping of the bodies? Nope, not at all. He did all that himself. Was there planning, behind it all? Did she talk to him? Did she communicate with him about, if the family wasn't here, it wouldn't be so bad for him or whatever, down the road? I don't know. I don't know. There's nothing in her past, nothing since then that has come up. You know, did they investigate her? They did to a point. They have just as much as they looked into the Trent Bowles story of being, the homosexual lover of Chris Watts. They looked into it, but it quickly was, everything led back to Chris doing this. Chris did it. Chris got rid of him. It came up, in pretty short order. It was like, well, we know who the hell did it. Where did you do it? Where did you put them? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap up tonight's Friday Night Live right here. So thank you everyone for being here with me tonight. I really appreciate you all stopping in, listening to me ramble on about different cases. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, give it a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know that you enjoyed this conversation and the information that we talked about tonight. If not, leave a comment down below, under the video. Let me know how you feel about the stream. Is there something that I should do different? I can't make it any better or more enjoyable for you if I don't hear from you. I don't patrol the actual comment section. I don't delete people's comments, good or bad. As long as you don't, leave it, a vulgar context or start talking about cryptocurrency, in my comment section, I leave all of it there. So I would love to hear from you all. But thank you again, everyone. You all have a great weekend and a great week ahead. And stay safe out there. Remember, the more you know, the better off you are. House Charles bought her and have a room with mirrors on every wall. She called it that her dancing room. Stay safe.